Hi, my name is Mark, and you were probably able to see by the title and or thumbnail of this video that, controversial topic. Jimi Hendrix is like the master of 3 notes per string scales. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a controversial topic, but it's definitely an interesting one, because like nowadays people are much more aware of that fretboard visualization thing that guys like Tom Quayle and Martin Miller and probably Guthrie Govan and all of those hyper beast gamer guitar players do. By the way, if you haven't already, you can check out the video I did with Tom Quayle where we actually don't exactly talk about 3 notes per string and cage systems and stuff like that, but we talk about a bunch of interesting stuff which you may want to check out. But for a good while, people wouldn't really think about it. We're like, okay, you either do the cage system or you do the 3 notes per string system. That's the sort of thing you gotta do. That idea was a little bit dumb just by itself, because in a way, we end up doing both of them, especially if you're a gigging guitar player that's gotta play a bunch of different stuff. But that's a topic for another time. Basically, when learning either the cage system or 3 notes per string scale, something like it, both systems are good for some things and are less good for other things. And when you're trying to learn those systems, well, I think that in a way, cage seems a little bit more boring, because you're like, oh, I have all of these chord positions that I'm not really sure how to use and whatever. And when it comes to like 3 notes per string scales, it's a little bit more intuitive, I guess, because you're like, okay, I have like a C major chord. Let me just play a C major scale 3 notes per string. Of course, you gotta learn the shape, right? But after you learn that shape, everything seems alright, right? Every time you play a C major chord, you can play a C major scale, or a C Lydian scale, or a C mixed Lydian scale. Depending on which chord you're playing over, some of them may or may not work as good as you think they will. But again, that's a topic for another time. I've done videos about that before, which you can check out right there, probably. And even though I can agree that sometimes doing the 3 notes per string, because you're like repeating certain shapes, sort of like that number method that Trey Xavier from Gear Gods uses. Like, if you learn those shapes, it's easier to just move them around the fretboard, and with cage it's like you have to learn a bunch of different stuff. But especially if you do the Hendrix stuff, and you've probably seen Guthrie Govan's video about this, like if you know a little bit about those Hendrix-ish chord progressions, like that chord progression is just fine as it is, but it's not really that like flourishy, extension-ish chords that Jimi liked to use. That sort of thing like... you know, that sort of flourishing chord sort of a thing, even though maybe that little pentatonic one was a little bit excessive. You probably get what I mean, right? And again, that was pretty much using like that whole, in a way, fretboard visualization thing, but if we're just talking about like thinking about the cage system or thinking about something like the 3 notes per string system, it was much more of the cage system. But I can actually tell you that it was by doing this sort of stuff that I actually learned 3 notes per strings. Because, well, let's say that we're playing like a D major scale. Those of you who know the D major scale position, like let's do it in the 5th fret, like first position, root position. Here's your D major scale, 3 notes per string, right? Well, the shape you're using on your 3 notes per string system is the same shape you're using on your cage system. Well, that seems a little bit odd, right? But not if you think about it properly, because like a D major scale is just a D note with a bunch of intervals attached to it. Every interval you attach to it will bring out a different scale or a different chord or whatever. Because we were playing over a D major chord, we wanted to have that D, that F sharp, and that A. All of the other notes were just extensions. Well, the same thing with the cage system. We're playing over the D major chord, so it's all about finding inversions of the D major chord. If we just do positions where we have at least a note on the 5th string, like you have of course this position, your regular like D major position, power chord position I guess, but you also have this one, like this C major position. Again, if you don't know the cage system, this might be a little weird, but again you have this one as well, and this one as well, and then you repeat them, and so on and so forth. Well, let's say that we're playing in this position. Again, if you look at it, it's a position from the cage system, sure. But if you look at it like this, it can also be again a position of your D major scale. But it can also be like a position from here. also look at like something like this, like the C major chord sort of position for D major chord. You look at this and you might think, okay. And you might all be thinking, well, yeah, sure, maybe you're just a cage nerd that wanted to convert like the 3 notes per string nerds, or the exact opposite. Maybe you're just like a 3 notes per string guy who wants to convert all of the cage guys. But that's not the purpose here. The purpose here is, I mentioned in the beginning that if you're a gigging musician, you'll probably have to use both. If you play a bunch of different songs and you play with a bunch of different people, you may end up, well, in some songs having to play that Hendrixian stuff. And in other songs having like a crazy 80s solo that makes you use all of those 3 notes per string scales. And all of that sort of a thing. And again, it really depends on the artist you're playing for, and it really depends on the type of gigs you're playing. But like if you're playing for like a pop artist or accompanying a singer or something like it, sure, you can't really be super like flashy guitar player and do all of that sort of stuff. But if you're a 3 notes per string guy, in that situation, it's probably good that you can play some of those flourishy Hendrix tough chords. Because one, it will make your job much more interesting than just being playing. But it will also get you out of your comfort box. And in a way I can say the same thing for 3 notes per string scales. And don't get me wrong, I think that knowing the method of 3 notes per string has a bunch of strong points that can give you an advantage in some situations. But I don't really think it's as useful as the cage system, not just like in the gigging scene and accompanying singers and stuff like that, because that's not necessarily what guitar playing is all about. But sure, I mean, if you know all those scale positions, you can do some interesting stuff. And if you're into legato or fast playing, or just like alternate picking isn't really your stuff, 3 notes per string can obviously be very useful for that. Like doing it, all of that. But unless you're playing some very guitar-focused music, and in a way I think we all want to do that, but still, you get what I mean. Maybe using that 3 notes per string method may or may not be the best method for every situation. And again, it's not like the cage system is exactly perfect for every situation as well. And if you're only really playing one system or the other, well, I think this video gives you some good context on how you can use both and apply both, because they're not really that different when you think about it. Like doing all of those is the same scale position as, or maybe doing that like, if you do, well, this is again your position of, if you can connect the bridge between those two systems, I think it will make you a much better guitar player. And again, if you just want to use one system or just use another system, like, sure, do whatever you want. But if you want to be an all-round guitar player, you may want to learn both. And if you want to learn both, well, probably the best way to use it is to just learn, of course, if you use scale shapes, like, you'll need that, of course, but just learn Hendrix songs. Of course, not all Hendrix songs will have like super fancy flourishes and stuff like that, and do stuff that will make you leave out of your comfort zone. But if you try to analyze every lick you take and say, okay, what am I playing here? Okay, I'm playing like this D major pentatonic sort of a thing. And in here I'm playing, well, it's pretty much the same thing, just an octave higher in the last part and in a different position. Well, but maybe by doing, I can also do, and that can be really useful. And since you're here, or if you're here, so if you're just a straight caged guy, or if you're just a straight 3 notes per string guy, again, I think we all end up maturing to using both systems. But if you think that you're just using one and you want to try the other, again, don't really think about it as learning a completely new mechanic or a new completely different system. Just think about it as like, okay, this is something I can play, this is something I can also play, let's make a bridge between those two systems. If you're new to all of this and you're trying to learn it for the first time, again, of course, like, get familiarized with a couple of shapes of the cage system. Like, again, you could technically do it in a bunch of other strings, but if you know like full positions, I think it's easier. And do it in as much strings as you can. That helps out a lot. And the same thing for 3 notes per string scales, like, let's get a little bit familiarized on like having your fingers move 3 notes at a time, and doing the picking as well, like, because for some people doing like 3 notes per string alternate picking can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, so they revert to like economy picking or just doing legato stuff. And then try to bridge the two systems instead of trying to be focused on hours and like going. And doing it until you can do it on every string, or maybe instead of doing like. Instead of trying to do that all the time, like, of course, there's nothing wrong with you doing that sort of a thing. And it can definitely be an important thing. But I think that if you try to bridge both systems and try to understand how both systems work, not just become addicted to it, like actually understand what's going on. And again, in a way, I guess it kind of brings us back to that old fretboard visualization thing. But at this point in time, it's not like anybody cares. If you try to bridge the two systems, and it's probably easier if you do it creatively. And I have a video about doing practicing that's not completely boring. Like, you can maybe check that video and apply that same concept for this video. Like, again, let's take that chord progression we had before. D major, A major, D minor, and G major. Let's try to use some, like, hybrid cage system and 3 notes per string stuff to outline those chords. Like, again, that sort of position of, like... You can do the same thing for A. And in that just little excerpt I just improvised some stuff around. I really tried to outline this sort of position. Because again, it's like our position number 1 for all the 3 notes per string guys. But you can maybe think about position number 6. Like if you're in D major, position number 6 would be starting in B. It's sort of connected to this position of the cage system. If you go to A, it's sort of connected to this, to B, to this, and to G you can of course do this one. So maybe you try to play something to outline that D major chord, maybe using that position right there. Again, a little bit more sloppily played because I haven't properly warmed up yet, but you probably get what I mean, right? Again, it's that sort of a thing that you think, oh, it's just like standard boring practice for the cage stuff, or just like standard boring stuff just trying to outline all of those positions for like every chord and whatever. And like, in a way, yes, but I think that if you do it this way, you end up learning a hybrid of two systems, which not only becomes more helpful, but it helps you visualize the fretboard a little bit better. And I think that overall, it will not leave you as much stuck on those like shape boxes that usually people say, oh, I'm stuck on the box and whatever. Because in this case, even if you say, oh, well, I'm stuck in those boxes, well, are you stuck in this box? Or 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 are you stuck in this box? Like, if you're stuck in all of those boxes, well, maybe you're not stuck at all. If you're comfortable with all of those boxes, then maybe you're not stuck in the box at all. But again, that's sort of metaphysical, I guess, and it would really depend on the guitar player. So again, because I think I've been probably rambling for now, let me just end it with this. Like, again, try to do this hybrid caged and 3 notes per string stuff. Again, if you do one or the other, you can try to do both. If you don't know any of those yet, maybe try to do this sort of approach. I think it can help. Please leave a comment telling me what you thought of this video, and if you think that I missed something, there was something I should have said that maybe I didn't explain as best as I could, or maybe there's like some suggestions you have for other videos, please do. And if you can, please subscribe to the channel and turn on all the notifications. As you're probably aware, YouTube acts a little bit weird, like even if you subscribe to the channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the notification bell thingy below, you still really may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my videos, not only advise to suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and generally backing tracks and stuff like that, but I always post about my videos, so you can always get notified for that as well. Links for usual suspects will be below, but in general, at my Hendrix guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and share this on social media. I'd highly appreciate it as well. And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Check out some of my other videos if you want to. If you actually try to do any of this sort of stuff and try to play any particular exercise or something like it, tag me on Instagram. I'll probably check it out and share it because I'd like to see what you guys can come up with. And yeah, cheers!